My boyfriend ignored me at the family dinner. I handed over an envelope and left everyone in silence. Madison Harrison gripped the discreet envelope inside her purse as she watched her boyfriend chat animatedly with his parents as if she were invisible. 3 years into her relationship with Grant Crawford, she was used to this behavior at the monthly dinners at her in-laws' house. But this time would be different. It was when Grant cut her off mid-sentence once again that she decided to place the envelope on the mahogany dining room table. The silence was immediate. "Grant, can you stop talking for a moment?" said Madison, her voice trembling but determined. "Not now, Maddie. I'm telling my parents about the new company project," he replied without even looking at her. Mrs. Martha Crawford, the grey-haired mother-in-law with gentle eyes, discreetly touched her son's arm. "Grant, let Madison speak, my son." "Mom, we'll talk later. I'm explaining about the expansion of Crawford Properties to the tri-state area." Madison took a deep breath. At 28, she had learned to be patient, but that afternoon had changed everything. What she had discovered in her grandfather Arthur's office would make her make a decision that would change the lives of everyone at that table. "Grant," her voice came out firmer now, "I need you to stop and listen to me." Mr. Howard Crawford, a 63-year-old man with a grey mustache, lowered his reading glasses and observed his daughter-in-law with attention. There was something different in her tone. "What is it now, Madison?" Grant sighed irritably, finally looking at her. "Can't it wait until I finish speaking?" Madison opened the envelope with her hands trembling slightly. Inside were documents she hadn't even imagined existed until a few hours ago. "These documents show that I am the new majority owner of Crawford Properties." Grant's fork stopped in mid-air. Mrs. Martha's eyes widened. "Mr." Howard turned pale. "What do you mean?" Grant stammered. "My grandfather Arthur bought 65% of your company's shares over the past 2 years. He transferred everything to my name yesterday before leaving for the Bahamas." The room fell completely silent. The sound of the air conditioning seemed deafening. Grant let his fork fall onto his plate. "That's impossible. How could a retiree buy our company?" "He's not just a retiree, Grant. You never took the time to ask what my grandfather did before he retired." Mrs. Martha swallowed hard. "Arthur Harrison? Harrison Holdings?" "Exactly," confirmed Madison. "My grandfather is Arthur Harrison, founder of Harrison Holdings. He retired 5 years ago and transferred management to my cousins, but he never stopped investing." Mr. Howard removed his glasses completely, rubbing his face. "My God. Harrison Holdings is one of the largest investment groups in the country. And you never asked where the money came from that I always had to help Grant when he needed it," Madison continued, her voice gaining strength. "You never questioned how I could afford my private college, my apartment, my car." Grant was white as a sheet. "Madison, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you never cared to really get to know me. In 3 years of dating, you visited my grandfather exactly once and spent the entire visit talking about yourself. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Mrs. Martha stood up from her chair, her hands trembling. "Madison, dear, I need to tell you something." Everyone's eyes turned to her. "I knew." "What?" Grant turned to his mother, incredulous. "Your grandfather came to see me 3 weeks ago, Madison. He came here one afternoon when you were at work." Madison's heart raced. "He came here?" "Yes. He said he wanted to get to know the family of his grandson's girlfriend better. We talked for hours. He told me about the company, about his plans, about how special you are to him." Grant ran his hand through his hair, visibly shaken. "And you didn't tell me anything?" Mr. Howard looked at his son with an expression Madison had never seen before. "We tried, Grant. Your mother tried to talk to you about being more considerate toward Madison. I tried to give you advice about valuing the person you have by your side. But you always said you were tired of our advice," Mrs. Martha added, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "You said we were old-fashioned, that you knew how to handle relationships better than our generation." Madison looked at each of them. The truth was being revealed layer by layer, like peeling an onion. There's more, she said, turning back to the envelope. More? Grant whispered. My grandfather didn't just buy your company. He did it because he found out how you treat me. What do you mean, found out? Madison pulled out another document. He hired a firm to monitor our relationship, not to spy on me, but to understand if you really loved me. The shock on Grant's face was obvious. That's an invasion of privacy. It's a grandfather's love, Grant. Her voice became softer but firm. He lost my grandmother 2 years ago. I'm the only granddaughter he has. He wanted to make sure I was with someone who valued me. Mrs. Martha approached Madison. What did the report say, dear? Madison opened the folder and began reading excerpts. The young man shows consistent patterns of disrespect in social settings. He frequently interrupts his girlfriend, steers conversations away when she tries to talk about her own interests, and displays discomfort when she demonstrates knowledge superior to his on any subject. Grant stood up abruptly from his chair. That's not true. There's more, Madison continued. At restaurants, he often orders for her without asking her preference. At social events, he introduces her only as my girlfriend, never by name or profession. When she got the promotion at the company where she worked, he changed the subject on every occasion she tried to share the news. The silence in the room was awkward. Mr. Howard stood up slowly. Grant, sit down here. Dad, this is ridiculous. They can't judge our relationship like that. Sit down, Grant. The firm tone from his father made Grant obey. Son, I need to tell you something I've never told you. About me and your mother. Mrs. Martha looked at her husband in surprise. Howard, 35 years ago I almost lost your mother for the exact same reason. Grant looked at his parents, confused. I was just like you. I thought I knew everything, that she was lucky to be with me. I treated her like she was an accessory in my life. Mrs. Martha sat down again, her hands clasped on the table. Your father humiliated me in public so many times that I even called off our engagement. You called off the engagement? Grant was incredulous. His parents had always been the most united couple he knew. For 3 months, Mr. Howard confirmed. They were the worst 3 months of my life. That's when I realized I was losing the most important woman in my life because of pure, stupid male pride. Madison heard every word, feeling a mix of sadness and hope. What happened after that? She asked. Mrs. Martha smiled sadly. He changed, truly. It wasn't overnight, but he worked every day to be a better partner, not a boss. And look, Mr. Howard gestured around the comfortable room, we built this company together. She was always my partner, even when the sexism of the time didn't allow her name to appear on official documents. Grant looked at Madison, for the first time really seeing her. Maddie, Let me finish, she interrupted softly. There's one last thing in the envelope. She pulled out a handwritten letter. My grandfather wrote this to you, Grant. To me. To you. With trembling hands, Grant took the letter. The handwriting was steady, from someone used to writing by hand. Grant, if you're reading this letter, it means my granddaughter decided to reveal the truth about our family. I didn't do this to humiliate you or your family, who are good people. I did it because a 78-year-old man has learned that sometimes we need a jolt to see what's right in front of us. Grant stopped reading, looking at Madison. Keep going, she encouraged. Madison is the light of my life. Intelligent, generous, determined. She earned an engineering scholarship on her own, worked while studying, and today she's one of the best professionals in her field in New York City. But when she's with you, she shrinks. That breaks my heart. Grant's eyes began to well up. I'm not taking away your chances, son. I'm giving you the opportunity to truly know the woman you claim to love. If you can see her as the partner she can be, not as a supporting character in your life, maybe you two have a future. Grant folded the letter, his voice coming out in a whisper. He's right. Grant? Mrs. Martha approached her son. He's right, Mum. I treat Maddie as if she's less than me, as if she's lucky to be with me. Madison felt tears burning her eyes. When you got the promotion to senior engineer, I was jealous. Jealous. Instead of being proud, I felt insecure because you were making more money than me. Grant, no, let me speak now. Please. He stood up and knelt beside her chair. When your college friends talk about projects you're coordinating, I change the subject because I feel small next to your intelligence. His words came out choked, heavy with emotion. When you try to tell me about your work, I pretend it's not important because I don't understand half of what you say, and instead of asking you to explain, I just ignore it. Mrs. Martha was crying silently. Son, I'm an idiot, Maddie, an insecure idiot who almost lost the most incredible woman in the world because I couldn't accept that she's better than me at so many things. Madison looked into Grant's eyes and saw something she hadn't seen in a long time, real vulnerability. You're not an idiot, Grant, you're human, with insecurities like everyone else. But I let those insecurities turn me into a horrible person toward you. Mr. Howard approached the couple. Son, what matters now is what you're going to do from here on out. Grant looked at his father, then at Madison. What do you want me to do, Maddie? How can I show that I want to change? Madison took a deep breath. That moment she had imagined so many times had finally arrived. First, I want you to get to know who I really am. Not the quiet girlfriend who stays in your shadow, but Madison the engineer, Madison who coordinates multi-million-dollar projects, Madison who has opinions on politics, economics, architecture. I want to know that, Madison. Second, I want to work with you at the company. Grant blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Now that I'm the majority partner, I want to implement changes. And I want you to be my partner in this, not my employee. What kind of changes? Madison smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. Sustainability, technology, innovation. I want to turn Crawford Properties into a benchmark for green construction in the country. Grant's eyes lit up. You have a plan? I have a 5-year plan. I want to show it to you if you want to see it. Of course I want to see it. For the first time that evening, Grant spoke to her with the same enthusiasm he showed when talking to his parents. Mrs. Martha wiped away her tears. And us, dear, where does that leave us? Madison turned to her in-laws. You're still the same as always. The founders and the family. Nothing changes that. Actually, I want you to help me teach Grant how to be a real partner. What do you mean? Asked Mr. Howard. Mrs. Martha, you used to run this company before, didn't you? Yes, for 15 years, until Grant took over. Then I want you to get actively involved again. I want to learn from your experience. Mrs. Martha's face lit up. Really? More than really. And Mr. Howard, I want you to continue as you always have, the moral compass of this family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now, continuing. Grant stood up, still processing everything. Mads, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell me about your family before? Madison hesitated for a moment. Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have. And because my grandfather asked me not to tell. He asked you not to tell? He said he wanted to see if you would still love me even if you thought I was just an ordinary engineer from a simple family. And I failed the test. You failed, but not completely. Grant looked at her, confused. What do you mean? You love me, Grant, I can see that. But you love a diminished version of me, a version I created so I wouldn't scare you off. What version? The Madison who agrees with everything you say, who doesn't argue when you pick the weekend plans, who stays quiet when you talk about work with your friends. Grant sat back down, the weight of realization settling on him. My God. How many times did you want to speak up and didn't? Many times, Grant. Many times. Mrs. Martha approached Madison. Dear, can I ask you a personal question? Of course, Mrs. Martha. Do you still love my son? The question caught everyone off guard. Madison looked at Grant, then at her in-laws. I do, but I don't know if I love who he really is or who I wish he would be. And what needs to happen for you to find out? Madison thought for a moment. I need to see if he can truly respect me, If he can see me as an equal, not as someone inferior that he's dating. Grant stood up again. Give me a chance, Mads. A real chance. What kind of chance? To work alongside you, to get to know who you really are, to learn how to be the man you deserve. That's not how it works, Grant. What do you mean? You can't change for me. You have to change for yourself, because you want to be a better person, not because you want to keep me. The depth of Madison's response impressed even herself. Mr. Howard smiled. She's right, son. I didn't change to keep your mother. I changed because I realized I was a bad person and didn't want to be that anymore. How do I do that? Grant asked, genuinely lost. Mrs. Martha approached her son. First, you accept that you have a problem. Second, you commit to working on it every day. Third, you ask for help. What kind of help? Madison opened her purse and pulled out another piece of paper. Couples therapy. I already booked a session for us next Friday. Grant looked at her, surprised. You had all this planned out? I planned several possible scenarios. This was the optimistic one. And the pessimistic scenario? Madison hesitated. Ending our relationship today. The impact of the statement echoed through the room. And is that still a possibility? Grant asked in a small voice. That depends on you. What do you need from me right now? In this moment. Madison looked him straight in the eyes. I need you to ask me about myself. About who I am, what I like, what I dream of, what I'm afraid of. I need you to show real curiosity about the person you've been dating for 3 years. Grant sat in the chair next to her, turning fully to face her. What's your biggest professional dream? The question was simple, but Madison felt a lump in her throat. In 3 years, it was the first time he had asked. I want to design a sustainable housing complex for low-income families, something beautiful, functional, that people would be proud to live in. Why? Because architecture shouldn't be a privilege for people with money. Everyone deserves to live in a nice, well-planned place. Grant looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. That's incredible. Do you have a specific project in mind? Madison smiled, feeling a spark of hope. I do, actually. I was waiting for the right opportunity to propose it to Crawford Properties. Really? Really, I want to use part of the company's profits to fund social projects. Not philanthropy, but sustainable businesses that generate profit and social impact. Grant's eyes began to light up. That would be revolutionary in the industry. It would. And I want to do it with you, if you're willing to learn about sustainability and social responsibility. I am. Mad, I'm willing to learn about everything that matters to you. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Howard exchanged hopeful glances. There's something I need to know, Grant said. What? What are you afraid of? The question caught Madison off guard. Of not being good enough. What do you mean? My grandfather is a brilliant man who built an empire. My cousins are famous lawyers and doctors, and sometimes I feel like I'm living in the shadow of all of them. Grant was silent for a moment. Is that why you shrink yourself around me? Partly. If I'm small with you, I don't have to deal with the pressure of being big. But you are big, Mad. You're amazing. I'm starting to believe that. What else do you want me to know about you? Madison took a deep breath. I want you to know I love classical music, but I pretend to like modern country, so I don't argue with you. I want you to know I love debating politics, but I stop talking when you say women don't understand economics. Grant winced. I said that? Several times. I'm sorry. That's awful. I want you to know I have opinions about soccer, about investments, about technology, that I read the newspaper every day and follow the international market. Why don't you ever talk about these things? Because every time I tried, you changed the subject or corrected me, even when I was right. Grant ran his hand over his face. My God, Mad, what kind of boyfriend am I? An insecure boyfriend who was afraid to find out his girlfriend is smart. And now you have to decide if you want to get to know who I really am, knowing that it will stir up your insecurities. Grant looked around the room at his parents watching him expectantly, at Madison looking at him with a mix of love and challenge. I do, I'm scared, but I do. Why are you scared? Because if you're all the things you're telling me, maybe I'm not good enough for you. Madison smiled gently. Grant, I don't want you to be good enough for me. I want us to be good together. What do you mean? I want my strengths to complement yours, and vice versa. I want when I know more about something, I teach you, and when you know more, you teach me. Like a team? Exactly like a team. Mrs. Martha couldn't hold back her emotion. That's what your father and I have had for 35 years, Grant. Mr. Howard agreed. That's right, son. Marriage isn't a competition. It's a partnership. Grant looked at Madison with a new intensity. Mad, can I ask you something? Sure. Will you teach me how to be your partner? The words came out heavy with sincerity and vulnerability. What do you mean? Teach me how to truly respect you. Teach me how to listen to you. Teach me to be the man you deserve. Madison felt her heart race. Are you sure you want this? Because it won't be easy. You'll have to face your insecurities, change your habits, admit when you're wrong. I'm sure. And what if we find out we're truly incompatible? Grant hesitated for a moment. Then at least we'll find that out by being honest with each other. Madison reached out her hand to him. Then let's start over. Hi, I'm Madison Harrison, civil engineer, majority owner of Crawford Properties, granddaughter of Arthur Harrison, and a woman who has a lot to contribute to a real partnership. Grant took her hand, smiling. Hi, I'm Grant Crawford, civil engineer, son of the founders of Crawford Properties, an insecure man who is learning to value the incredible woman by his side. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Howard Crawford exchanged glances, emotional smiles on their faces. There, said Mrs. Martha, now you can truly begin. But there's a condition, added Madison. What? No rushing. We'll go slow, building trust day by day. And if at any point you fall back into your old patterns, I'll speak up right away. And if I do? You'll listen to me and make an effort to change. No drama, no fights, just growth. Grant squeezed her hand. Deal. One more thing, said Madison, turning back to the envelope. There's more? Grant laughed nervously. The last thing, a proposal from my grandfather. She pulled out another document. If you agree to work with me as a real partner for 6 months, and if at the end of that period we're functioning well as a team, he wants to transfer 20% of the company shares to you. Grant was in shock. What? He wants to make you a real partner, not just an employee of the family company. But why? Because he believes you can be a good man, Grant. He just thinks you need to learn to let go of your insecurities. Grant looked at his parents, then at Madison. And you? What do you think? I think you have the potential to be an amazing partner, but it'll depend on your effort to change. I accept. Accept what? Everything. I accept learning to be your partner. I accept working with you at the company. I accept going to couples therapy. I accept confronting my insecurities. I accept growing. Madison smiled, feeling a lightness she hadn't felt in months. Then let's start today. How? Ask me what my favorite food is. Grant laughed. What's your favorite food? Japanese high-end cuisine, especially sushi. Really? But you always say you want pizza when we go out. Because you always say Japanese food is for stuck-up rich people. Grant made a face. I said that? You did. Wow, what a jerk. Were, but you can stop being one. Then next time we go out to dinner, you choose the restaurant. Deal. Mrs. Martha stood up. How about we toast to celebrate? With what? Asked Mr. Howard. With new beginnings. She walked to the bar in the living room and came back with a bottle of champagne. This is for special occasions, and I'd say today is a very special occasion. As Mrs. Martha poured the champagne into crystal glasses, Madison looked around the room. The table was still set with the dinner that had gone cold, the candles burning low, but there was a completely different energy in the air. A toast, said Mr. Howard, raising his glass, to new beginnings and second chances. To new beginnings, everyone repeated. Grant turned to Madison. Maddie, can I ask you one more question? Go ahead. What do you want to do tomorrow? What do you mean? I mean, what do you really want to do tomorrow? Not what you think I want you to do. Madison smiled. I want to show you my projects. I want to take you to some places in New York City that I use as inspiration for my designs. I want you to meet the engineer Madison. And then? Then I want you to show me Crawford Properties through your eyes. I want to understand your passions, your fears, your dreams for the company. And then? Then I want us, together, to start planning the future of the company. As true partners. Grant smiled, a genuine smile that Madison hadn't seen in a long time. Sounds like a perfect plan. Mrs. Martha wiped a tear that insisted on appearing. Do you know what this means? What? Asked Madison and Grant together. It means I'm finally going to have a real daughter working with me at the company. Mrs. Martha, Madison dear, may I ask you a favor? Of course. Stop calling me Mrs. Martha. Call me Martha, or even better, mother-in-law Martha. Madison felt her eyes well up. Thank you, mother-in-law Martha. And I, said Mr. Howard, am eager to learn about sustainability and social responsibility. I think it's time for this old company to modernize. You really want to be part of this? Dear, I built this company with my own hands 40 years ago. Seeing it transform into something even bigger, with a social purpose, would be the realization of a dream I didn't even know I had. Grant looked at his father with admiration. Dad, I never knew you thought that way. Son, we stop dreaming when we think we've already achieved everything. But your girlfriend, your partner, she reminded me there's still a lot to achieve. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot who are just starting out. Now continuing. Madison stood up and went to the dining room window. Outside, New York City shone with its millions of lights, each one representing a life, a story, a dream. What are you thinking about? Grant approached her. I'm thinking about how many families live in inadequate places in this city and how we could change that. How so? Crawford Properties has know-how, I have capital and vision, you all have experience. Together we could revolutionize affordable housing in New York City. Do you really believe that? I do, and I believe you can be a fundamental part of it. Grant was silent for a moment, looking at the city. Mari, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Sure. When I was a child, I wanted to be a social architect. I wanted to build beautiful houses for poor people. Madison turned to him, surprised. Really? Really? But my dad always said that doesn't make money, that a construction company has to focus on profit. And what do you think now? I think you can do both, profit and social impact. Madison smiled. Now I'm seeing the man I fell in love with. How so? The Grant who dreams of making a difference in the world. The Grant who cares about people. That Grant was always there, just hidden behind insecurities. Grant looked at her with a new intensity. Mari, I love you, truly, not the diminished version of you, but you. The engineer, the dreamer, the strong woman with her own opinion. I love you too, Grant. I love the man you are underneath all the defenses. They stayed silent for a few minutes, looking at the city, each lost in their own thoughts about the future. Grant. Martha's voice came from the table. Yes, Mom? Could you two come back here? We have some practical things to discuss. They returned to the table where Martha had organized the documents that Madison had brought. First, said Martha, we need to talk about the transition in the company. What kind of transition? Asked Madison. Well, now you are the majority partner. That means you have decision-making power over the major directions of the company. But I don't want to come in imposing changes. I want it to be a joint construction. Mr. Crawford leaned forward. What kind of joint construction? I want us to spend the next 3 months just getting to know each other better. Me learning about the company, you getting to know me, Grant and I learning to work together. And then we put together a strategic plan for the next 5 years. Grant grew interested. Including the social projects. Including everything. Social projects, expansion, modernization, sustainability, everything. Martha smiled. Madison, can I make a suggestion? Of course. How about you spend a few mornings a week at the company, observing, learning, giving suggestions? I'd love that, but I don't want to mess up your routine. You won't mess anything up, said Grant. You'll improve things. I want to learn to work with you, not for you or alongside you. And I, added Mr. Crawford, want to learn all that sustainability stuff you know. Sustainability isn't just about the environment, explained Madison. It's about creating businesses that are good for people, for the planet, and for profit. How so? Martha got interested. For example, sustainable building materials cost more up front, but they last longer and cost less to maintain. Well-designed houses use less energy. Happy employees are more productive. Grant was clearly fascinated. And where did you learn all that? Partly in college, partly in specialized courses, partly by traveling to see innovative projects. You traveled to see projects? I went to Denmark to see sustainable housing developments, to Colombia to see how architecture can transform communities, to Singapore to study green cities. Grant looked at her with an expression Madison had never seen before, genuine admiration. Why didn't you ever tell me about those trips? Because you always said traveling to study was an unnecessary expense, that Brazilians who want to learn abroad have a complex. Grant winced. I said that? Plenty of times. Wow, Mari. So many amazing things you've done that I didn't even know. And so many amazing things you can do if you open your mind to new possibilities. Martha clapped softly. There, now I'm seeing the chemistry between you two. What do you mean? They asked together. You're talking like partners. Grant is asking genuine questions. Madison is sharing without holding back. That's what a relationship should be. Mr. Crawford agreed. That's exactly how Martha and I have always talked about the company. Grant looked at his parents. You were always real partners. Always, said Martha, even when the partnership wasn't officially recognized. How did you make decisions? By talking, said Mr. Crawford. A lot. Sometimes we argued, but always with respect. And when you disagreed? We looked for a third option that worked for both of us, explained Martha, or sometimes one gave in to the other, knowing that next time it would be the other way around. Madison perked up. Can you teach us that? Of course, Martha smiled. It would be a pleasure to see you two building the kind of partnership we have. Grant reached for Madison's hand across the table. Mari, I have a proposal for you. What? How about we make our first decision as partners right now? About what? About when we'll start working together at the company. Madison thought for a moment. What do you think? I think we could start Monday. You spend the morning at the company checking out current projects. I show you the challenges we're facing. And in the afternoon? In the afternoon, we can go check out those places in New York City you use as inspiration. And couples therapy? We keep it on Friday like you scheduled. Madison smiled. Sounds like a good plan. Martha, Mr. Crawford, do you agree? We agree, said Martha. Actually, I'm eager to see how you two will work together. And I, added Mr. Howard, am curious to see those sustainable projects you have in mind. Grant stood up. So it's settled. Monday we start our new phase. But there's one thing we need to make clear, said Madison. What? If at any point you start treating me like an employee instead of a partner, I'll speak up right away. And if I start feeling insecure and slip back into old patterns, you'll tell me, and we'll work through it together. No judgment, just growth. Grant shook her hand. Deal. Martha stood up and started clearing the plates. Let me help, said Madison. No need, dear. Today you're our special guest. Mother-in-law Martha, can I ask you something? Of course. What do you think was the turning point for Mr. Howard? What really made him change? Martha stopped clearing the plates and looked at her husband warmly. It was when he realized he was losing not just a girlfriend, but his best friend. What do you mean? I wasn't just the woman he wanted to impress, explained Mr. Howard. I was the person he most loved to talk to share ideas with, to dream with. And he only realized that after you broke up. Exactly, confirmed Martha. During those 3 months apart, he missed not just the romance but the intellectual and emotional partnership. Grant looked at Madison. That's what I felt these past few weeks, Madison. I missed truly talking to you, not just about superficial things. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't know how. Every time you tried to talk about important things, I felt small and changed the subject. And now? Now I want to hear everything you have to say. I want to know your thoughts, your ideas, your dreams. Madison felt a deep emotion. Grant, that's the most beautiful thing you've ever said to me. It's true. Every word. Martha wiped another tear. There. Now I'm convinced you two are going to make it. Why? Asked Grant. Because you're talking like people who respect each other. And respect is the foundation of everything. Mr. Howard agreed. Love without respect doesn't last. But respect with love, that builds legacies. Legacies? Madison was intrigued. The company Martha and I built isn't just our professional legacy. It's the legacy of what two people can build when they work as true partners. And now, said Martha, you have the chance to build something even greater. Grant turned to Madison. Madison, can I tell you something? Of course. For the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. Our future. Me too, Grant. Me too. They stayed a few more minutes talking about plans, about dreams, about the company. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed. What had started as a tense dinner had turned into a celebration of new beginnings. When they finally said goodbye, it was past midnight. Grant, said Madison before leaving, thank you. For what? For having the courage to listen, for being willing to change, for giving me hope that we can be happy together. Thank you for not giving up on me, for giving me the chance to be the man you deserve. They kissed, and for the first time in months the kiss tasted like the future. The next day Madison woke up with a feeling she hadn't had in a long time, positive anticipation. She looked at the empty envelope on the nightstand and smiled. All the cards had been laid on the table, literally. Her phone rang. It was Grant. Good morning, partner. Good morning, Grant. I was thinking, how about we have breakfast together before heading to the company? I'd love to. Where? How about you pick the place? Madison smiled. It was a small gesture, but it symbolized a shift in attitude she had been hoping for a long time. I know a place that serves the best Japanese breakfast in New York City. Japanese breakfast? I've never had it. Then today you're going to try something new. Perfect. I'm learning to enjoy new things. As she got ready, Madison thought about everything that had happened the night before. The envelope she had brought didn't just contain documents. It held the courage to be true, to demand respect, to fight for the love she wanted. Her phone rang again. This time it was Martha. Good morning, dear. Good morning, mother-in-law Martha. I wanted to thank you for what you did yesterday. Thank me. For saving my son, for showing him who he can really be. Martha, I didn't save anyone. I just showed that I deserved respect. And sometimes that's exactly what a person needs to wake up. Madison felt tears of emotion. Thank you for supporting me, for being on my side even though you're his mother. Dear, a mother who truly loves her son wants him to be a better person, not to shield his flaws. And Mr. Howard, he's thrilled. He spent the whole night researching sustainable construction online. Madison laughed. Really? Really? I think you're going to have a very dedicated student. And Grant? Grant called me at 6 in the morning, asking what books he should read to better understand corporate social responsibility. Madison's heart filled with hope. He's really committed to change. He is. And you know why? Why? Because he finally understood that he wasn't going to lose you by being less than you, but by not knowing how to value how special you are. Madison hung up and finished getting ready. For the first time in 3 years, she was eager to meet Grant, not out of obligation or habit, but because she wanted to get to know the man she was discovering was her boyfriend. At breakfast, Grant surprised her by arriving with a small gift. What's that? Open it. Inside the little box was a delicate necklace with a plant-shaped pendant. It's beautiful, Grant. But why? Because you taught me that relationships are like plants. They need care, attention, and respect to grow. Madison felt her eyes well up. And this is my commitment to you, Grant continued, to nurture what we have between us every day. Grant, let me finish. This pendant has an engraving on the back. Madison turned the pendant over and read, "For Madison, my partner in everything." Now I understand why you chose Japanese breakfast, said Grant, looking at the elegant, colorful dishes. Why? Because it's art, like everything you do. Madison smiled, feeling she was getting to know a completely new Grant. And you? What do you want to do today after I show you the company? I want you to take me to your favorite places in New York City. I want to see the city through your eyes. Why? Because I want to understand how an amazing person like you sees the world. They spent the rest of breakfast talking about plans, dreams, and what they hoped to build together. It was the deepest conversation they'd had in 3 years of relationship. At the company, Madison was welcomed as the new majority partner, but Grant made a point of introducing her as a partner, not as a boss. Everyone, said Grant, gathering the employees, I want to introduce Madison Harrison, our new partner, and more importantly, my partner in all the projects ahead. The way he spoke, with genuine pride and respect, made Madison realize the change was real. During the morning, she watched Grant work and was impressed by his technical competence and leadership. At the same time, he consulted her on several decisions, treating her as an equal. Maddie, he said during a meeting, what do you think about using more sustainable materials in this project? I'll do a long-term cost-benefit analysis and show you the options. Perfect. We can decide together tomorrow. In the afternoon, Madison took Grant to see different neighborhoods of New York City, showing examples of architecture that inspired her, explaining her dreams and visions for the city. See that building over there? She pointed. Yes. It was built in the 80s with no environmental concerns. Imagine if we could renovate buildings like that, making them sustainable and beautiful. Would that be possible? Not just possible, but profitable. Sustainable buildings appreciate more and cost less to maintain. Grant looked at her with admiration. Madison, you're not just smart. You're a visionary. And you're not just a good engineer. You're a born leader. How so? I saw how you treat the employees, how they respect you, how you manage to coordinate complex projects. Together, we can be formidable. On Friday, they went to their first couples therapy session. What brought you here? Asked the therapist, Dr. Samantha Reed. Grant and Madison exchanged glances. We're learning to be true partners, said Grant. And we want to do it the right way, added Madison. During the session, they talked about their fears, their expectations, their communication patterns. Grant, said the therapist, you've identified that you have insecurities that make you minimize Madison. How do you plan to work on that? Every day, when I feel insecure, I'll talk to her instead of attacking or putting her down. And Madison, how are you going to help Grant feel safe being vulnerable? I'll celebrate every time he shares his insecurities, instead of using them against him. Are you willing to do communication exercises at home? Yes, they answered together. 3 months later, the transformation was visible. Grant and Madison worked as a real team. The company was implementing its first sustainable projects, and their relationship had turned into a genuine partnership. Madison, said Grant one night while they were having dinner at home, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret handing over that envelope? Madison smiled. Never. It was the best decision I ever made. Why? Because it gave me back the man I fell in love with. The man who dreams, who cares, who wants to make a difference in the world. And it gave me back the most incredible woman I've ever met, said Grant. The woman I was too stupid to appreciate. It wasn't stupidity, Grant, it was fear. And now? Now I'm afraid of other things. Of what? Of not being good enough for the dreams we have together. Madison took his hand. Grant, you're more than good enough. You're perfect for me, exactly as you are. Even with all my insecurities, and especially with them, because they make you human, vulnerable, real. 6 months after the dinner that changed everything, Grant proposed to Madison during a presentation of the first results of the sustainable housing project they were developing. Madison Harrison, he said in front of investors, employees, and the families who would benefit from the project. You taught me that true love isn't about being with someone who makes you feel superior, but about being with someone who makes you want to be better. Madison was completely surprised. You taught me that partnership is about bringing out the best in each other, not competing or putting each other down. He knelt before her, in front of more than 100 people. Do you want to build a life with me? Not as my girlfriend or wife, but as my partner in everything. Madison looked around, saw Martha and Howard crying with emotion, saw her grandfather Arthur, who had come back from the Bahamas, especially for that day, saw the company employees who had become a second family. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. I want to be your partner forever. The applause was deafening. Later, at home, as they admired the ring engraved with Partners Forever, Grant made a confession. Madison, can I tell you a secret? Of course. I knew. Knew what? About your grandfather, about the family money, about everything. Madison looked at him shocked. What do you mean you knew? I found out 6 months ago, well before that dinner. A client mentioned Harrison Holdings and brought up Arthur Harrison. When he said the guy had a granddaughter who was an engineer, I put 2 and 2 together. And why didn't you say anything? Because I was scared. Scared that you would leave when you found out that I knew and still kept treating you badly. Madison was silent for a moment. Grant, this changes everything. What do you mean? It means you treated me badly knowing exactly who I was, knowing I had money, power, options. Grant lowered his head. Yes, and that's even worse, isn't it? It is. But it also means that when you decided to change, it was a real choice. It wasn't because you found out I was rich. It was because I realized I was losing the most important person in my life. Madison held his face in her hands. And that, Grant, makes all the difference. Why? Because it means you chose me out of love, not convenience. I always chose you out of love, Madison. I just took a while to learn how to show it the right way. They kissed, and Madison felt that they had finally found what they had always been looking for, a real partnership built on respect, love, and honesty. A year later, at the wedding reception held in the first sustainable housing development they had built together, Martha gave an emotional speech. When I met Madison, I saw in her not just a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. And when I saw my son transform out of love for her, I understood what true love is. Mr. Howard added, you taught us that it's never too late to grow, to change, to be better. Crawford Properties today is not only more successful, it's more human. Arthur, now 79 years old, stood up to speak. My granddaughter has always been special, but the two of you together are extraordinary. Keep building not just houses, but homes, not just companies, but legacies. That night, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Grant whispered in Madison's ear, "Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for having the courage to change. What do you think will happen from here?" Madison looked around the party, saw the families who now had decent homes thanks to their work, saw Martha and Howard dancing like teenagers, saw her grandfather chatting animatedly with investors about future projects. I think we'll keep growing, creating, building, together. As partners, forever. The music continued, but for Grant and Madison time seemed to stand still. They had found something many searched for their whole lives, a true partnership, built on solid foundations of respect, love, and shared purpose. The envelope Madison had brought to that dinner contained not just documents. It contained the courage to demand what she deserved, the wisdom to give a second chance, and the strength to build something new from the wreckage of what didn't work. And so, what started as an unbalanced relationship became the most beautiful love story their families had ever witnessed, a story of growth, transformation, and true partnership. The end. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you are watching us from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with honest words. Do you believe Grant really changed, or should Madison have ended the relationship? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you very much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other exciting stories.